Okay, I think we'll admit everyone, shall we? Yeah.
Okay.
Progress.
No, this is us here. Yeah. Hello, everyone. We'll just wait until the last people come in. But could you keep yourself on mute, please? Or if you come in and you're unmuted, that you mute yourself. Thank you so much. We'll get going shortly. Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 1 minute past 7, so we'll get started. There are still some people coming in, and apologies for that, but we'll get going so we can finish on time today. So good evening and a very warm welcome to the first Compassionate Friends online event of 2022. With our guest speaker, Sangeeta Mahajan. Her talk is entitled Making Friends with Now, and I'll introduce you to Sangeeta shortly. But first, my name is Carolyn Bryce. I'm the Chief Executive of the Compassionate Friends, for those who don't know me. It's good to see so many of you in the Zoom room today, and I also extend a warm welcome to the others who may be watching the live stream of this event through our charity's public Facebook page. So just a few small items of housekeeping before we continue with our evening. Firstly, I wanted to remind you that we're recording this event. So that those who weren't able to be there can listen at a later date, and the recording will be up on our website and also on our YouTube channel. And your presence here, as usual, indicates that you consent to this recording. Everyone, as I said, has been muted, as we've got over 100 people joining us this evening. So please would you keep your device on mute throughout the whole of our time together. Thank you so much, because otherwise it will become quite noisy in the room. A little word about chat, the chat function, which you can find usually, depending on what device you're using, but usually at the bottom of your screen, under participants, I think usually. So we are politely asking you that you use the chat function, as long as it is working. Let me just check. Well, if I can put the chat function on, I will. But can we ask you that you use the chat function in the meeting room only when requested? So while Sangeeta is talking or answering questions, we'd ask you to not use from posting in the chat box, as it can be really distracting for the speaker and also for the others in the audience. During the talk, Sangeeta may ask some questions or ask for your input, and then do please add any answers, feedback or comments in the chat. Our experience from previous talks is that some who are here some of you may want to share in the chat how you're particularly feeling, or something of what happened to your child or your sibling. But for the reasons just mentioned just now, and also making sure we look after everyone in the Zoom room, we politely and gently ask you that you don't put too much detail or any graphic details in the chat box. I want you to know that we appreciate that everyone is on their own individual journey and will be at different places in their grief and their struggle to make sense and cope with what has happened. And we do feel for you all here this evening, wherever you are along that grief journey. However, please be aware that we won't be able to offer you individual responses, particularly in the chat. And when we come to the question and answer part of the evening, please note that we might not be able to answer every question or acknowledge every comment. Instead, we'll pick up mostly on general themes that arise from your questions and feedback, and Sangeeta will be able to comment on those, and I hope that's okay with you. So Sangeeta will be speaking for about 25-30 minutes today, including a short time for contemplation. And after this, we will invite feedback, comments and questions from you. And with the proviso just given, Sangeeta will endeavour to comment on as many as she can at the time. We plan to finish our time together about 8 p.m. or thereabouts. So now I'm absolutely delighted to be once again being able to welcome Sangeeta Mahajan as our guest speaker this evening. As many of you know, Sangeeta is mother to her son Sagar, who died aged 20 in 2015. She's a trustee of the National Charity for Prevention of Young Suicide, Papyrus, and last year she was elected to the steering group of the Support After Suicide Partnership. She's also a consultant anaesthetist at Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust in London. She advocates and supports those bereaved by suicide and for bereaved parents. And she works tirelessly towards breaking the stigma that surrounds mental illness and death by suicide. She is especially interested in working towards creating more awareness in minority communities, and has been a keynote speaker at various national and international conferences. Sangeeta has also spoken at retreats and weekend events run by the Compassionate Friends, and her words are always wise, moving, highly inspirational and hugely hopeful for anyone who's suffered deep loss. Her first talk for us, Finding Meaning After Loss, was the first online event hosted by the Compassionate Friends back in August 2020. And she followed this up with her second talk entitled My Champion Me, covering the theme of self-compassion. Both talks can still be viewed and listened to on the TCF website and also our YouTube channel. A final word from me. As many of you may know, these occasional online events have been running since summer 2020 and have offered us all a unique opportunity to hear from many inspiring speakers who are themselves bereaved parents or siblings, and listen to their personal perspective and reflections on loss and grief. We do know that everyone's grief and grief journey is different, unique and individual to them, and none of our talks are designed to tell you what to do or how to be. Our hope is simply that you may find something in what Sangeeta offers tonight that resonates with you and gives you a glimpse or more of hope in what can sometimes feel like an endless struggle. And because we're all on a different points in our grief journey, just finally a gentle reminder to be sure you look after yourself during our time together and also after this evening. So thank you hugely, Sangeeta, for taking the time to be with us today, and we're looking forward very much to hearing from you.
Thank you, Carolyn. That's a very flattering introduction. But actually, I need to thank all of you for being here today. It is my honor to be here with you. And at the very outset, I will say that I'm really, really sorry for your losses, or whatever reason brings you here, your pain. And be assured that you're not alone and we're all in this together. I would also like to say that some of the concepts that I might share might be a little bit challenging, or maybe a different language, a different way of looking at things. And I just want you to know that whatever is being said with the um, purest intention to help and be authentic in my sharing. We really gather to speak about the unspeakable, as we know that words are often not enough to express how we feel. So I hope you will hear beyond the words and see the intention behind the words. And I hope it will encourage you to think about things in a new, fresh way. So I start with a story. Okay. We all like stories, don't we? So once upon a time, there was a beggar. So he sat at the street corner and begged in his tattered old clothes, and many people went past him. Some gave him some spare change, some pennies, and that's all he was looking for. That's what he was living on, just scraps, pennies. So he'd been living like that for many years. And one day, a young man came along and said, "What are you sitting on?" So he said, "Oh, I just sit on this old rotten box that I found somewhere." So he says, "What kind of box?" He says, "It's a wooden box, just some old wooden box." So have you ever tried to open it? So the beggar said, "What do you mean? It's got nothing in it. It's an old box I found somewhere. I've never bothered to look in it. There's nothing in it." So he said, "Well, why don't we have a look? I mean, you're sitting on a box. Maybe, let's look. What's in it? Aren't you curious to find out?" The beggar says, "Oh, all right, whatever." So he makes himself inconvenient and gets up, and they look at the box. They remove the old blanket from top of it and look at it, and there's a little lock on it. So he says, "Oh, it's locked." And they break the lock, and when they open it, it's filled with gold coins. And this chap has been sitting on it for years without looking in it, looking for pennies from other people. So often the things that we look for outside of us are available to us in invisible ways. Until we look, we don't see them. And we'll come back to the story later. So, with your permission, I will now share a few slides that I've prepared with help, with a lot of help. So, making friends with now is the topic for today, and the objectives we've set for today are to understand the tendencies of our mind, to see how our mind causes suffering by having these tendencies, to observe the mind with awareness, and to experience being at ease with what is. So, what are the tendencies of the mind? You know, the human mind, human beings are the most evolved species, so to say. We are on top of the food chain. We are intelligent beings, and our minds are our, superpower. Like, we have fantastic minds, very creative, um, very capable. And at the same time, our minds have made us, the human race, the biggest threat to the planet. In the last century alone, more than 100 million human beings were killed by other human beings. That is also the doing of our mind. So while our mind is a fantastic organ, it's not an organ, whatever it is, it's not really in one place, but an attribute we have that helps us deal with our day-to-day lives and enrich our lives or otherwise. So let's see, what does it do? it keeps us dissatisfied, right? People with curly hair want straight hair. People who are married want to be single. People who are single want to be married. People who are fair want to be dark, hence all the tanning products. People who are dark want to be fair, hence all the fairness creams that you get in India. So, dissatisfaction is the state of the mind. Resistance, resisting what is. So, if it's like saying, I I prefer the summer months. Winters, don't like the winters. So actually, not appreciating what is for something that is not. Black and white thinking, constantly putting labels on things: good, bad, evil, kind, right? Constantly putting labels on things and comparing. This retreat is not as nice as the last. That holiday was much better than the other one. You know, uh, that photograph, this food, something or the other, constantly comparing. And of course, it makes up stories, creates narratives around events. For instance, there's this young man, waiting for his girlfriend outside a cinema, and the movie is supposed to start at 9:15, and it's already they agree to meet at 8, get a quick bite, and then go in. So he gets there at 8. He's waiting. She hasn't shown up. It's 8:30. She still hasn't shown up. I mean, she really maybe she doesn't want to be with me anymore. I wonder what's happening. At least she should have the decency of phoning me and letting me know what's happening. Why is she so late? Why hasn't she informed me? Now it's 8:40. It's like, oh my God, now this is really getting too much. What's going on? I mean, that's rude. That's no basic decency, to at least inform people that you're getting late. Da 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 da. And then she comes running saying, as I was coming, this girl came off her bike and her phone was dead. So I sat with her and she was using my phone. So I didn't have my phone to actually inform you. So I was just sitting with her because I had to wait for the ambulance to come. But in his mind, it had gone to places that, you wouldn't. But that was his mind doing its thing when the explanation was actually quite simple. And of course, it clings to the negative. So this young man, saves up a lot of money, works really hard, gets himself a car, really nice Lexus, and he goes to this party reunion with his friends. And there his friends have, Porsches and Ferraris, and he comes back feeling, oh, and it stays with him for months that, and that's what our mind does. He stops celebrating the goodness of life. And last but not the least, we'll develop on this some more later. Our mind is a pendulum. It constantly moves from the past to the future. When you think of the past, it there are memories, even nice memories. You're like, oh, I wish it could be like that again. And we can dwell on that. And the future. Oh, will this happen? Will this not happen? This will never happen. Then the past. Oh gosh, I made so many mistakes. Only if this would have happened, then that would not have happened. So that's what the mind does. It constantly moves between the past and the future. And every thought that arises in our body, it gives rise to a feeling. So the thought arises in the mind and then goes as a feeling to the body. And then the feeling feeds the thought. And then the thought feeds the feeling. And that loop keeps getting strengthened. It keeps getting strengthened For instance, when Sagar passed, he, as Carolyn said, very, very sadly died by suicide, which is so common. And of course, I was convinced that, it had everything to do with me. And I was like, only if I had not come to the UK, only if I had never left home, we'd be all right. And then I would feel this strong guilt in my body, then go back to the mind and say, oh, only if I hadn't sent him to a private school, I should send him to a state school, that might be better. Then back again. Okay, oh, only if I had fed him more vegetables, It's just non-stop. It's just thought, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So if you recognize any of this in your mind and body, please do share in the chat, and we can share them with the whole group. Thank you. I'll pause for a minute or two. If you can think of something, just share with us, please. Thank you. Carolyn, anything?
No. Would anyone like to say? Oh, here we are. There's a question: how can we live in the now more often? Oh, here we go. So Maggie says, I had been at the very place Dylan died just 3 hours before. If I'd waited, if I'd just been an hour later.
Yes.
Jean says, my son took his own life. Why did I not know how bad he was feeling?
So, so the mind is always going into the past and trying to fix it. And it's a way of bargaining. It's a way of bargaining with the truth and actually not being with it. And the suffering comes from believing everything the mind tells us. It's his job to tell us things. But when we believe it and cling to it, and we can't see that it's trying to evade the truth, it's trying to go away from what has happened, it's trying to find explanations and evade it. So it doesn't actually have to deal with what has happened.
Simon says, I think of all those things that won't happen in the future.
Yeah.
So as well as the past, the future.
Yes. Yes.
Replaying events leading to the death all the time as a way of trying to change the outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the reality of the fact is so strong that our mind is trying every way to dodge it, to actually not sit with it, and trying to change it one way or another. Completely identified with the mind. It's the identification with the mind that causes our suffering. If we could just sit outside of it and observe it and say, there, it's doing this again. It's done it before and it's doing it again. And knowing that we are not our minds, we are not our thoughts or our feelings. We have thoughts, we have feelings, they are very valid. We have bodies, they are real, but we are not our thoughts, we are not our bodies, we are not our feelings. We have them, they come and they pass.
Sangeeta, there's a really helpful explanation of the pendulum from Alex, saying I swing between past, my sister was here, everything was good, and the future, my parents will die too, I'm alone to deal with their old age, the future is terrifying.
Yes, and you see how, again, it's clinging to the negative as well in that. That has happened, so more negative things are going to happen. And that's what it does. It projects and projects. And of course makes up narratives. How many of us know this constant inner dialogue that goes on, that this, when so and so said this, it was so considerate, I should have said something back, and next time that happens I'm going to say this, and and I should have done this, um, and there is, it goes into overdrive. So it has its role in the transactional world. It helps us look after our bodies, show up to meetings in time. It helps us interact with other people in a nice way, or it helps us express ourselves, have jobs, have an income. That's all very good. We need our minds. But when it goes into overdrive and it unnecessarily keeps making this chattering noise all the time, that is what we need to be aware of, and because that is where our suffering comes from. So so it's in the believing and the clinging and the identifying with the mind that our suffering comes from. And what is the relationship of the mind with this moment right now? In this moment, we don't need our minds. It's redundant. There is no need for it because we are present to each other, and that is enough. Your presence is enough. So the intensity of our pain is proportionate to the resistance that our mind offers. And the mind has this need to always be in control, always be dominant. But in the now, if we can catch it and say, actually, I don't need all this, the stories that you're telling me. I don't need them. I'm seeing, I can watch you, I see what you're doing. And if we make this moment the primary focus, then the mind has to recede into the background. Because in this moment, it has no role. My heart is beating on its own. It doesn't need the mind to beat my heart. I don't need my mind to breathe. The breath comes and goes on its own. All my sleep comes and goes on its own. I don't need the mind to sleep. I don't need the mind for most of the functions of my body. Yet it wants to dominate. It wants to be present the whole time. Whatever has happened in the past sits in our bodies. And by being present to our bodies, we are present to everything within us. We don't need our minds to process that. For years after Sagar's passing, my mind was going crazy. It was like, but this, if only that, but that, but why? But why us? Why him? Such a sweet, sweet boy. Why did he have to suffer like this? And then I compared and I said, you know, maybe it's because other people, with other children with lots of siblings, maybe it's them. But then I see it happens to them. And I think maybe people who are very rich, they don't lose, they do too. People who are psychologists, they do too. People, all kinds of people have lost children. And I'm like, so why then? Why? And after, going over it thousands of times, I came to realize that actually there is no answer. It is simply the way it is. There is no answer. And the more I engage with my mind, the more it'll make me suffer. So while I work in suicide prevention and I try and change things, but now I try and come at them more from my presence and my awareness than from my mind. So I think in finding the value of the present moment and being able to sink into it fully and realizing that in every moment there is a possibility for us to be free of our minds if we are aware what our mind is doing. And that is the aim of this session. So, what is real in this moment is our breath. So, you can't breathe for tomorrow, right? It has to happen in real time now. You can't, yesterday you couldn't have breathed for today. You can't even breathe for the next 5 minutes. It has to happen in real time now. So we are finding ways to connect with the present moment. How can we connect with it? Through the breath, which isn't happening in real time, and through the body, which is also present here as a solid thing that we can relate with. So these are our tools to connect with this present moment. And we've talked about why we want to do that. And of course, there might be one other reason. I'll let you read this. This is Charlie Mackesy. I'm sure you've heard about his book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It's a gorgeous book. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it. So, in a nutshell, we are not our minds. When we can become aware of our minds through our awareness and be free of it, be free of the suffering it causes us. So, this gentleman in the suit is Professor Richard Davidson. For a long time, you know, the present moment and all that was in the remit of the spiritual people, like Dalai Lama. But this gentleman went and saw him, and he's a neuroscientist and does a lot of research in anxiety, fear, and all. So Dalai Lama said to him, "Why don't you do some research in kindness and compassion?" So he said, "It's very hard." He said, "But it can't be harder than anxiety and fear. It's the same, right?" So he said, "Actually, it is the same." So he came back and he did a lot of research. He has now published more than 400 papers. And he met with other leading figures in the research on happiness. This is Matthew Ricard, who has written a book called Happiness. And he did a lot of research with them, studying the minds of people who practice being in the now a lot, and training other people to be in the practices of compassion that might and change their minds. And he did show that actually the neuroplasticity of the brain is a real thing. So by doing certain things, we can actually change the structure and the function of the brain. And in this figure, we can see that in the frontal cortex, this area lights up just after 2 weeks of training, compassion training. And this frontal cortex is the center for empathy, for decision making. So it's not like if you put your mind aside for a bit, it's like your mind stops working. No, it still works, but it works from a different place. It doesn't work from a place of judgments and harshness and labels. It works from a place of presence, awareness, compassion. It works from a heartful place. And Professor Davidson has published more than 400 papers, and he's not the only one. There are many, many more people who've done that. So, just to give you a glimpse of the practice as such, and just to experience sidestepping from our mind for a few minutes, I will ask you to kindly just put your pens down. If you have anything in your hand, just let it be. And if you just sit comfortably in a position that you can maintain for about 5-7 minutes, and just relax your shoulders, straighten your spine without actually any stiffness in your body. And And just if you like to close your eyes, you may. If you like to keep them open, just focus on a point at a mid distance without actually looking at anything. Just relax into this position and just observe your breath coming and going. Observe your chest rising and falling with each breath. The rib cage expanding. Receive all the sensations arising in your torso. Moving away from thinking patterns and moving towards awareness of the body and the sensations within. Rising and falling of the stomach, the chest wall, subtle movements in the back. Just tune into those. If a thought arises, invite it to wait. Return your attention to your torso, gently inviting the mind back to the breath, bringing yourself into the present. The breath is present, sensations are present. Drink in the sensations, experience the breath. The more we immerse our attention in the present, the less we suffer. Like a glass of muddy water, the sediments all stirred up. If we let it settle to the bottom, the water will become clear. Stay in the present, allow the sediment to settle. Let the water clear. Rising and falling of the rib cage and the stomach. That's all there is. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to fix, nothing to be, nothing to get, nothing to get rid of. Just rest. Place your awareness on the whole body. Shoulders, arms, hands, fingertips, waist, hips, legs, tips of the toes. Feel any tightness in your jaw or neck, around your head, mouth, and lips, and relax. Is it ever not now? If you experience strong emotions, feel them in the body. All emotions show up as sensations. Locate the epicenter of your emotions, chest, solar plexus. Move away from your thoughts and sit with the emotion. They are passing. They are not who we are. Stay with your breath. Come back into your body. And very gently, when you're ready, come back into the room. So the mystics have known for a long time what science is proving now. I hope you got a little glimpse of freedom from your mind and tuning into your body and breath. So to summarize, time is not linear as we know, but just for explaining what we've done today, uh, the concepts we've tried to cover today and the practice. So if past and future was thus, now is a little dot. It's just gone already, gone, 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 gone. And in each moment, our mind's doing this. But if we can consciously sink into the now by connecting with our breath and our body like we did, we can make that vacillation of the pendulum disappear for a bit. Even if it's for a few seconds a day, it's worth it. And then slowly, slowly, with practice, the time for which you can be free of your mind can be increased, like we saw. And we can move, relating to each moment, one at a time, without coloring it with labels, without having our mind dominate our thoughts. Having this ability to say yes to one moment at a time, that is making friends with the present moment. Just as a friend, if a friend say, invites you, when you think of a true friend who gets you, invites you for coffee, your first inclination is to say yes, right? Similarly, just saying yes to life and see how it starts to work for you, than against you. Because with the mind, you'll always be against something. And it's too much of a fight. It's very draining. So trying to say yes, I hope this is the takeaway message from this talk. Try and say yes to the present moment with everything that's in it. With the awareness of our thoughts and feelings, awareness of the tendencies of our mind, A for awareness, B for breath and body, and C for checking in. Every now and then check in with yourself. Where am I now? What's going on? Just becoming aware. It's like spotting the thief and saying, I can see you there. Just spotting the thief disables him or her. So this is about that. So today we've tried to understand the tendency of the mind, how it causes our suffering, observe the mind with awareness, and experiencing. And hopefully you did experience a little minuscule second of being at ease with what is. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. Thank you. That was just incredibly inspiring and so much to think about, but also to feel, not just to think. Would anyone like to comment or ask any questions or feedback to Sangeeta? This is your chance to ask or share with Sangeeta, or ask any questions, or say something about your experience this evening.
Please do share.
If you could share it in the chat, I'll feed it to, I'll kind of share it with everybody. So we'll give you a few moments to do that.
Have I stunned everyone into silence? Please keep them coming. Questions, comments, all welcome.
So I'll start to read a few comments that are coming through, Sangeeta. Julie says, when I meditate like that, I feel overwhelmed by sorrow and just start crying and my body heaves. Is that natural?
Whatever needs to happen, happens. Just know you are safe. You are safe. Trust yourself to get through it. Whatever needs to come out, let it come out. It needs to express itself. It needs to show up. Emotion is energy in motion. It needs to move. It needs to do something. If you need to pummel a pillow, do that. If you need to cry, cry. It's a very healthy thing to cry. You are safe in your body. Just trust yourself to be safe. It is so tragic. It needs to move through you. Allow it. Give it the permission to move through you. And it is a practice, like you said, it's not something that you can do just once and then I think the more of a solid relationship we have with every passing moment, we can be more present and our decisions can be actually more sound and more in line with who we authentically are. So just know that it will pass. It is impermanent. All our thoughts and feelings are impermanent. So let them come and go. Watch. Just observe them come and go. That's it. I hope that's helpful.
Sangeeta, there's a comment here about when we've lost our only child and how difficult it is to stop ourselves ruminating on the future, because our child perhaps was our future. Do you have anything to say about that?
I'm so sorry for your loss, really. I really can't say anything. I have nothing to say. Just know that the more spaciousness you have around your grief, you will also see the good things that were and how they also live in your body. And that, your child will always be with you in their own special way. I now feel Sagar's presence in so many ways. Um, and I think by honoring their memory in the present, saying, I was so lucky to have this person in my life. We were so lucky. And to celebrate that, I mean, celebrate is a very big word, but even to honor that and stay with that. And I have found that honoring my son's memory has been the biggest way in which I've been able to heal. Constantly honoring, doing things in his name, talking about him to people, sharing his life, sharing all the goods and the bads, or everything in between. There is no good or bad, but it's just being with what is. This is how it is. This in breath has no, this, it is like this. It is like this. This out breath is like this. And in that space, the universe is huge. And just to know that we are minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Millions of people have been born before us, they've died. And, if the whole universe was the size of the earth, our planet would be 1/1,000,000th of a pinhead. That's how tiny we are in the grand scheme of things. Of course, it's huge. Your loss is massive. But I've found that honoring the memory that once that you had this beautiful thing in your life, and constantly honoring that in the present, and allowing it to bring a smile to your face that I was lucky enough to have this wonderful thing, presence in my life. I think that has really helped me. I really don't know what the answer is, but I hope this helps.
There's a comment, Sangeeta, about anniversaries, birthdays, key dates, which can be really challenging, even in the now, as they are in the now when they happen. Is there anything that you can share about those? Is that around sort of honouring, the honouring you were talking about?
Yeah. Again, I think just honoring. I mean, birthdays I don't find as difficult because that is the day when this lovely person came into my life. Yeah. So birthdays, actually, even now, I'm very grateful for that day to have come, that brought him. But also remember that time is a human construct. Animals don't go around asking each other, what is the date today? So the time is also a construct of the mind. Seasons come and seasons go. Yes, there is a circularity to things, but nature goes with it. The plants, they know what time it is. They know day and night. They know. They don't have to know the clock time and the exact date of the year. Time is a human construct. So to know that, okay, yes, it is that date and it's that time, but actually, this moment is eternal. It is timeless. Whatever the time is always now. Even on those days, the time is now. And the calendar time is an artificial construct anyway. It has just been designed to make our life easy. It's nothing, you know. It is the mind needs it to cling on to Monday. Mondays we do this, and when are we meeting up? We're meeting up on Saturday. We need it for that reason. Again, it's transactional. Time is eternal. Nobody has actually fully understood what time is. So again, it is a construct in which the mind gets caught up. That's another way of looking at it. You may think it's complete nonsense, which is fine.
I just wanted to read you one comment actually from Anna about taking time to be mindful is a rest for our body, but maybe doesn't help with the intense sadness that we live in. But we physically can't cope with being rock bottom all the time, so it gives a bit of respite. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think even the smallest break from your thoughts, that stepping out of that thought feeling loop, even for a few seconds, is so restful. You can be yourself for a few minutes because you are not those things, and your body knows that. Your presence knows that. Who we are is the presence, in the presence of which the thoughts and feelings arise. We are like the sky, the aeroplanes come and go in that. Birds come and go, storms happen, but the sky doesn't get upset about it. All of this is happening in that space. So we are that space of presence, awareness, being, all of those words that have been used, in which all these things happen, and we observe. And through observing and not attaching, not identifying with them, and saying, okay, this is happening. It is happening and it will pass, and I will watch it arise and cease inside me. But I'm not this thing, it is temporary. There is a poem by Rumi called The Guest House. Do read it when you have a moment. I can recommend that. Just to know that everything is impermanent and these feelings and thoughts will come and go. And trust yourself to hold them, observe them, stand back from them, and do what is right for you. You don't have to do this alone. Get help, spend time with people who are helpful. And actually, it's not about sitting in one place with your eyes closed. Even when you're walking from A to B, you don't need your mind as long as you know where you're going. In that walking, being fully mindful of the walking, how your weight falls on the foot, how your weight is distributed, what the texture of the ground is. Breathing the air, feeling it go through your nostrils into your chest while walking. So being fully present to the walking and not running a story in your head as you're walking. So it could be done in the simplest of everyday activities, but even if you sit down for 3 minutes a day, as long as it takes you to brush your teeth, you even sit for that time, and slowly, once you get the experience of the joy of your true being that is free of your mind, then you will want to experience that more and more, I hope.
We do need to end now, I think. But I just, when you said that, Sangeeta, there seems to me to be a link, doesn't there, between uh, that kind of conscious mindfulness and the other things that many bereaved parents and siblings do, like walking or exercise, or even just deadheading the roses in a regular way, or something absorbing like painting,
Yeah.
or even things like crosswords and Sudoku, something that keeps us very much with it in the moment.
Being fully where you are.
Mm, mm. And it
Being
can
fully
also
where
be
you are.
almost automatic. It becomes, yeah. Mm. So it just really remains for me to thank Sangeeta for her hugely inspiring talk, and you'll see from the comments, Sangeeta, how much it's helped, or the lovely comments that people have put into the chat. So thank you so much, and I just really hope that some of Sangeeta's reflections and ideas and unique perspectives resonate with you, and that you have found something in her words to take away and build on as you journey on without your child or sibling.
Can I recommend a book?
Yeah.
This book, The Power of Now. Please do get it if you can. As you can see, it's been read very much. I love it. I've read it many times, and I think it's very beautiful.
And I know that our library at the Compassionate Friends has that book, and if you contact library@tcf.org.uk, our wonderful librarian will send it to you. I'm sure she has plenty of copies. So I just want to finish by just saying that Sangeeta, myself, and my staff and volunteer colleagues at TCF just all recognise and appreciate that everyone here is a bereaved individual. And as I said before, everyone here is very much at individual points in their journey and struggle. But if you have taken a few little things or even one little thing away from tonight's talk, then we hope it's been helpful and worthwhile for you to attend. Because we are at different points in our grieving, it really continues to be so important. So please take time to look after yourself and wrap yourself in self-care and compassion after this session, and as you continue on with your child or sibling in your heart. And so once again, a huge thanks to Sangeeta for taking the time to talk to us tonight and to answer your questions and comment on your comments. And thank you to all of you for your important and very relevant contributions to our evening together. And as Sangeeta said right at the beginning, please remember that you're not alone, and our charity offers you a range of peer support. Our volunteers and staff team all aim to walk alongside you as you continue in your journey of loss and grief for your son or daughter, brother and sister. Please go onto our website to find out more. Our helpline team, remember our helpline team is there for you when you're looking for an empathic listener who's also a bereaved parent themselves. You can call us on 0345 123 2304 to talk to a helpline team member. If you don't have local support, either a local support contact or support group in your area, please do remember that we continue to run a range of occasional groups online for parents in specific circumstances and for bereaved siblings 18 years old and over. And remember, our private groups on Facebook and our online forum also function a bit like informal support groups. So please do sign up to these and connect with other parents or siblings. I want also, as part of the promotion, to say to you that we're restarting some of our in-person retreat weekends, fingers crossed, and support days, which are a bit like a mini retreat in a day. So have a look at those. We've got our supportive weekend in Bath for newly bereaved parents is now full. So there is a waiting list. So please sign up to that if you want to see if there's a space available. We also have a bereavement support day in Glasgow on the 5th of March for parents bereaved by suicide or substance use. And our Scottish gathering for bereaved parents, siblings and grandparents is in Stirling in May. And during the whole of 2022, we plan a number of support days around the UK and other weekend retreats. So please watch out for our emails and website, or call our helpline for further details. Here endeth the sales spiel. But thank you so much for being with us this evening. We hope you keep in touch with Compassionate Friends and access one or more of our layers of support, peer support for you. And we hope we'll see you again very soon. Take care of yourself just now after listening tonight, and also in the coming days. So a very good night to you all, and please just leave the Zoom room in your own time when you wish. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night and thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.